Art with Mrs. Murray. Line Scraps, an art project inspired by Elizabeth St. Hilaire. For this art project, the supplies you will need are art paper, pencil and ruler, scrap paper, scissors, paint and paint brushes, Mod Podge, or make your Mod Podge by using glue and water. Go to griddrawingtool.com from the instructions. Click Start. Upload your picture. Click Next. You can rotate your picture of your animal one way or the other. Click Next again. You can choose to crop the picture or not. Click Next. I played with the saturation to make the picture look a little brighter. You can choose to do that, or you may not need to. Click Next. A grid will pop up. This is super important. Make sure it says number 6. This is the perfect scale for your art paper that comes with your art kit. Make your lines white and make them 1 pixel across. Apply that to your grid, and now you have your grid of your lion. We're going to start by drawing our grid on our paper now. It's really important that you mark every 2 inches across the long shot side of your art paper, which is 12 inches long. This is going to match the grid that we just made on the computer with your paper. I like to do both the top and the bottom of the paper. And then from there, we'll use the ruler to draw a line from each point, and this helps me make sure my ruler is going to be straight down on the paper. Now we have to do the other side. From the bottom up, start at the bottom, mark every 2 inches moving upward on both sides of your paper. Then connect each point from each side with your ruler. Make sure you lightly draw. You don't want to push too hard. You want it to be really light so that we can see your drawing and your painting underneath, and you don't see the pencil lines. Use your grid to help you draw the image from the computer to your paper. So you're looking at the squares and what shapes are in each square. How much space does that feature take up in the square? So I had a tendency to make my features too big, so I had to keep making it smaller and smaller. I'm looking at the lines, and I'm drawing what I see inside each square. This gives us a good frame of reference to scale down the picture. This is why it's so important that we made them 6 squares across. Now we're going to tear up some paper, scrap paper or any type of paper. You can find other scraps. I used some notes from an old journal. So I'm going to try and experiment just like Elizabeth St. Hilaire did and see different techniques. So this one, I'm trying to see if I can get the paint to act as glue to keep my scraps on. So I'm just painting over those scraps, and it did work. It held my scraps down, but I found some better techniques as I continued to explore. So it's important to begin with your background because we're going to layer the scraps on top so that the animal sticks out of the foreground. Now, if you wanted to do like a monkey in the trees or an animal in the tree, then you may have your animal in the middle ground and then put some branches over top of your animal to make your animal look like it's hiding behind some of those trees. So I did that for the background. Now I'm working on the grass where the lion is standing on. And again, I tried different techniques. I tried using paint and just painting over the scraps. I wasn't fully pleased with how much the paint mixed. So when I moved to the other side, I'm going to try out a different technique. And on this side, I decided to paint the whole background brown. And then I took my individual scraps and I started painting each of them one of my grass colors. So I used a bunch of different grass colors that I saw in the image, and I kind of abstracted it, made it a little brighter, saturated it. And then I'm using Mod Podge, which is just glue and water, to paste my scraps down. So I'm putting the Mod Podge, so I'm putting the paint on the scrap, then I'm putting Mod Podge on the back, and then I go back over the whole thing with the Mod Podge. So the Mod Podge acts kind of as a sealant as well. As you'll see, I go right over top of the scrap. And I liked this technique a little bit better because it made the individual little colors stick out more. I decided to add some cool images to my cloud by adding, because I found this paper that I thought was really cool. Now for the legs, this was tricky. You have to measure the shape, and then you cut out the shape, and then you paste the shape down. So I had to do this a couple times because I messed up, and so I really wanted my shape to fit that leg perfectly, and so I would measure it with my pencil, kind of the top and the bottom, and then I would cut it out and place it down, and then that tended to work pretty well for me. I decided I did not want paint on the legs because that was such a fun looking paper. So I needed to fill my background up a little bit more with the paint, and then I used the Mod Podge to paste down the legs. Again, the Mod Podge goes right on top, acting like a sealant, gluing it down. And then once I got my legs down, I came back in with my paint and with some more scraps to make it look like the lion's feet were in the grass. And this effect just camouflages the feet a little bit better, just like in the picture. Now I'm measuring out the cheeks and the whiskers. And then the chin, and with the chin I wanted this little texture, so I cut little slits along the paper so that it would have a textured chin. Now I knew I needed to put the chin on last so it would stand out in front of the mane, so I put that aside. This color paper is going to be the forehead and the nose of the lion. I thought that would be a really cool looking texture to do, so I cut out the shape. I'm going to put paint right over top of this because I wanted it to blend a little bit more than the other colors. So I'm using my artistic eye to decide what I want to blend and what I want to stand out. So I wanted those legs to stand out a little bit, and I wanted the forehead to blend a little bit more. Now there's no right or wrong here. It was my choice. It's what I wanted to do. And so that's why I did it. That's what I love about art. It's all your choices. It's what you want to do. You get to be the artist. You make the decision. You get to look at the shapes of your animal and cut and tear out scraps to create the different parts of your animal. Paint the scraps or don't. Be creative. Explore different techniques and make your artwork your own. I cut out each little strip of the mane, and that took me a very long time. I wanted a base color, so I went ahead and painted the whole mane based on the colors I was looking at in the pictures. And remember, I saturated my line a little bit more just to bring out those brighter colors because I felt like that made it look more interesting. And I liked the way that looked. And remember, take your time with this. This took me 2 days because I had to let my artwork dry, and then I would come back and let it dry again. You have all the time you need. So make your artwork your own. Take your time. If you get to a point where you're like, oh, this isn't fun for me anymore, Go get a snack, take a break, come back to it tomorrow. You have the time to make your artwork your own. Most artists took a very long time, sometimes even years, to make their paintings. So I'm just pasting different parts of the mane. This took me a really long time because I kept finding different pieces of scraps that I thought would look really cool in the mane, and then I kept adding them to it. I'm using the Mod Podge technique to get the scraps to stick, and then I found this blue color and I took a risk. I thought it would be really cool to add just a little bit of pop in the mane, even though I don't see that in the picture. I wanted to add that little bit of blue and that little bit of bright orange, just to make it look a little bit interesting, to make my artwork my own. Now I found this really cool fabric for the nose. I kept cutting it down, and then I traced out the nose to get the perfect shape for it to fit in between the little cheeks that I had glued down. And then I found yellow tissue paper to put for the eyes. I cut out little circles, made that for the eyes. And now I'm using my marker to add any final touches. You can use a paintbrush as well, but I wanted these things to stick out, so I'm using my black Sharpie, and I love to add touches with my black Sharpie. I'm highlighting the ears and the eyes, and you'll start to see all the shapes kind of pop out with the marker. And then my marker was too dark, so I used a lighter color marker to kind of add into the details to the nose, just so it was a little bit lighter. And then some white paint underneath the eye to make them pop, just like I saw in the picture. And there we have it. There's our lion scraps, or whatever animal you chose to make. Thank you for joining me. Have an awesome rest of your day.